Hey folks, it's Jordan, Compassionate Behaviorist here, wanting to talk to you about some trash TV. Let's be honest, lots of us watch TV sometimes that we're not necessarily proud of. My wife and I binge watched Love is Blind, Netflix's new show, last week. New like dating reality show. And you know, we've ventured into some of these reality dating shows every once in a while, not very often. We like watch the first season of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. We watched, I think, maybe only one episode of Joe Millionaire. That was really painful. That's like 10 years ago or 15 years ago or something. Trash TV, right? It's maybe that's a harsh term for it, but it's very popular. I mean, we have a president of the United States who started in a reality TV show, and guess what? A lot of the stuff that he puts out on there on TV or his press conferences or whatever you want to call them, you could consider it kind of trash TV, and yet it's all over the headlines. So there is something, and we could look at the economics of, you know, supply and demand. Like, what is there about trashy stuff that's, you know, unbelievable, annoying, makes us afraid or angry or feel like strong things? Why is it that is, you know, what we desire, you know? And there's some interesting things that we could explore there. But I want to talk specifically, we'll get to Trump in another episodes, but right now, or in other videos, right now I want to talk about Love is Blind. We watched 5 episodes, and it was the night before Valentine's Day, so maybe we were justifying this is a romantic show or something. But anyway, it's these people who go into these pods, men and women, and they go into a pod where they can't see the other person, and they have they can talk to each other. And so the idea is, you know, you put these people together, they have dates, and they rotate through, kind of like speed dating, but where they can't see each other, and see if they build connections that are not based at all on looks. All they have is the sound of the person's voice and the words they're saying back and forth, which then also, if there's any emotional connection or emotional intimacy that's building up there through these discussions. It's kind of an interesting premise there. And of course, with all reality shows, one of the biggest things that makes it not reality is that there's this other confounding variable, which is that the contestants are going to be on national TV. So it's hard to know, you know, it's easy to be skeptical of motivations. Like, is this person really coming here to find love? Or are they coming here because, you know, they might be able to become a spokesperson for this product, or they might be able to parlay this into some other kind of be a game show host or whatever. You know, they could become the president of the United States, or like Omarosa, a cabinet member. I don't know if she was a cabinet member. I don't think she was. But in the administration of a presidency, if you're, you know, become popular or infamous enough of a character on a reality show. So there's this confounding variable that makes it obviously not real. And I think most viewers know it's not real in some way. And yet, why is it is compelling? Because they are real human beings that are on these shows. And so a lot of times the emotions you're seeing, it's, you know, it's easy to see that this person is experiencing this emotion right now, and that is compelling. So Love is Blind. I want to talk about, we watched the first 5 episodes that Netflix released. I want to talk about Carlton and Diamond. So this was an interesting couple that Carlton disclosed to the, you know, in between interviews, not to the woman that he was forming a relationship with, but to the viewers, to us, that he was bisexual, and that before coming on the show in his earlier years, that he had had relationships with both men and women, and that he was afraid to tell this woman Diamond that he was, like, you know, beginning this relationship with. He was afraid to tell her because it's like, I've been rejected so many times, and is she still gonna, you know, want to go out with me or want to further this relationship if she knows that I am bisexual, or if I've been with men and women. That was his thing. And so he didn't tell her, right? And so they built this relationship on all this trust and emotional opening up. And Diamond was, you know, they were both kind of feeling this relationship. The interesting thing with this show is, like, you know, it's set up in this way where they have this time to date where they can't see each other, and then if they propose, then they move on to the next round where they're engaged and they see each other for the first time after proposing, which is like, so people are proposing, you know, after a week of being talking to each other without seeing each other. So it's set up in this very arbitrary, strange way. So what does this have to do with behavioral science, behavioral principles, and therapy type stuff, compassionate behavioral principles and therapy things? Well, watching it, you know, you see their interactions when they actually do meet up. They're both attracted to each other. They're excited. But then, you know, they're going to the next stage where they go to a resort in Mexico, and he's again talking to the audience saying, I don't know if I'm ready to tell her. I probably should tell her. And you're starting to see his kind of, you're starting to think like, man, you should have told her before. You know, if what you're building is something based on emotional intimacy, then not being open to her is going to make her trust you a lot less. And it's also understandable that opening up to someone like that, coming out in a sense to someone that you want to have a relationship with, would be really hard to do, like especially if you've been rejected time and time again from that, or people have not wanted to be with you if you had shared that in the past. And so behaviorally speaking, you could see that the behavior for Carlton of being open about his sexuality with romantic partners had been punished through his experience in the past, through feeling rejected by people. And what had been reinforced is his insecurity about his identity, his insecurity about who he was. And it seemed like, as my wife and I were watching, we were thinking, just tell her, you know, and, you know, just tell her like in a matter-of-fact way. It's, you know, it's not her business in the sense of she has anything over your past in terms of being able to judge whether or not you should have done that or whether or not you should or shouldn't be bisexual. Just be open about it without apologizing for it, rather than not being open about it and then bringing it up later in this way that's like, there's this big thing I haven't told you. And of course, that's what happened, and it escalated quickly. And what happened was, you know, if you saw the episode, you know, at the end of this, they have this big argument, and she's actually, she tells him the night before, and then she's like, okay, I need a night apart to think about things. This is big. This is different news. I didn't know about this. And so the next day they talk by the poolside, and his walls are right up, and he's coming in there like defensive and angry at her, and she's coming in there wanting to talk to him about it. And it escalates into a thing where she eventually, you know, has her drink and spills it all over his face. Trash TV, good reality TV, but it felt like a real emotional situation for both of them. Like, she was hurt that he had lied to her, and then he calls her a bitch and all sorts of things, and he was hurt because, again, his cycle of when he opens up to someone that he is bisexual, then the woman rejecting him. And that played out again. So it was sad to watch this. One of the takeaways I had from this was, as cheesy as it is, how important I feel statements are when you're discussing something really difficult with a romantic partner, with whoever it is, when it's an emotionally charged thing. I feel statements, it's the total therapy cliche. But Carlton went into it with this kind of you know, like, you're the only one that's acted like this. Why are you treating it like such a big deal? He went in this you kind of blaming thing, rather than saying, I feel, you know, I feel that you're not open to who I am as a person, you know. And the other thing is, when they were both, it's interesting, they are actually both saying I feel. So they were using I feel statements, but they were using it in the way that's like, I feel that you are being a bitch right now. I feel that you are, you know, that you are a liar, you know. So that's not the I feel statement. The I feel statement is, I feel, and then what's the emotion? I feel hurt. And if you're being defensive, it might be that there's something that you have done, that there is truth that is your part to be accountable for. So it might be, I feel bad, like from Carlton, I feel bad that I wasn't able to tell you this before I proposed. If he had said that to Diamond, guess what? I think she would have felt really validated. I feel sorry that I didn't open up to you before I proposed to you. That puts you in a rough spot. And then be able to say, and I don't feel sorry for being who I am, right? So instead it escalated into this thing where they were both invalidating each other, boom, 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 until she throws his drink on him, and she's out and she's crying, and she goes back to her Chicago, and he's upset and crying and saying, yep, see, I can't open up to people. It was really, even though it's this kind of reality TV show nonsense, it was heartbreaking to see, because I've seen so many people who get stuck in these behavioral patterns where they really want nothing more than to be accepted and be loved and love someone else. And yet it's really scary for them to learn how to do that and to practice doing that, because it takes vulnerability, which is scary. And sometimes when we start being vulnerable with someone else, especially if there's something where we're telling them something that might actually be hard for them to hear initially, then we take their reaction so personally that it's like, okay, the walls go right back up. Instead of being able to be vulnerable and letting someone else have their emotional experience and saying, I'm being open and honest. That's what I'm going to do. That's kind of how Carlton went about it. He's saying, like, I'm going to leave here. I might die alone, and I will know that I didn't deceive anyone. And, he's kind of taking this, like, I'm honest and I'm doing this. And on one hand, he was being honest. On the other hand, he didn't give any space for Diamond to be honest and let herself feel and process through, okay, I'm engaged to this man, and I just learned that instead of being straight, he's bisexual. And she wasn't even saying that's a game changer. She was just saying, I just need a minute to think this through. And part of it seemed like it was less about his sexual orientation, and it was more about the fact that he hadn't told her, and they had these long discussions in the pods beforehand. So here I am going on and on about Love is Blind. The other thing, Jessica and Mark, if you've watched this show, oh man, Jessica and Mark, that's painful to watch. You're just like, Mark, move on. How many ways, she's not going to tell you, she's not an assertive person, she's not going to tell you straight out that she's not attracted to you. And with Jessica, it's like, man, you already broke this guy's heart in the pod, and then you come back. It's really cringy to watch. Anyway, might do a video about Jessica and vocal fry and up-talking. I'm interested in the behavioral reinforcement of that way of talking, where you're like, this is like amazing, this relationship we have. I've never had it with someone else. It's like the Kim Kardashian vocal fry up talk. It's an interesting way of talking. If you've seen the voiceover movie with what's her name, Lake Bell, or no, I can't remember her name. Anyway, she does this hilarious imitation of the voice. She calls it sexy baby voice. And when you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, people talk like that. Women talk like that. What's going on there? So in Love is Blind, Jessica talks like that. And Joanna and I are looking at each other, and we're laughing and kind of cringing. There's these great SNL sketches of parody of The Bachelor, where all the women are taking turns talking to the Bachelor, and can I talk to him for a second? They come in, and he says something, and they say, oh, I love that, or I like that. And Jessica was literally like a walking parody of that SNL sketch. So not very compassionate for me to be bashing on someone's vocal stylings. And it's interesting too. So I want to back up from making fun of someone and say, well, what's going on here? Like, there's a reason that this is reinforced with people. And it's not just a genetic thing, because you see this character, this individual, Jessica, you see when she's talking to the men in a flirtatious way, the vocal fry up talk is happening. And when she's talking to the camera, she's talking in a voice that sounds much more natural and straightforward. And it sounds like a kind of an intelligent, matter-of-fact voice, something that she might be speaking like when she's at a job interview, especially if the job interview is a woman, I'm thinking. I don't know. But the point is, is there a way to behaviorally analyze what's happening with his voice? One of the hints to that would be that in the videos, when you're watching, many of the men are drawn to Jessica. They haven't seen her. They're in these pods. They don't see her. But one of the things they're saying that they love about her is her voice. So the up-talk vocal fry seems to be at least something that's very attractive to certain men. And if you think about it, if you think, well, people sometimes talk about this as the Kardashian voice. The Kardashians are a family where, definitely would be to use behavioral terms, a behavioral exemplar to a lot of women. Of this is what is desired. This is what men want, or this is what romantic partners want in a woman. This is a desired woman, is someone who talks like this. Again, not that people are watching that and consciously thinking that and saying, okay, I'm going to talk like that on purpose, but that it's just shaping behavior of people watching that. It's making it more likely for women of a certain age to start developing, whether consciously or not, that style of talking. And so anyway, you can see, you can apply behavioral principles to reality TV, such as Love is Blind. And yes, we will be watching the rest of that series. It is too compelling. Anyway, thanks for watching. Be good to each other. Be good to the uptalkers, the vocal friars. There's some good videos I watched on YouTube about this, where there's a very compassionate and kind of empathetic way of, hey, let's not make fun of people who are talking like this. It actually might be that women have a harder time being assertive and talking in an assertive way, and this might be a way for in the workplace to actually be able to say some things without being labeled, you know, a certain way, overly aggressive or overly assertive or bossy, or those kinds of things that women might be shaped also by a patriarchal or misogynistic culture, that they have to talk in a way that's kind of gently getting their opinions in there and stuff like that. Anyway, we don't want to make fun of people's way they talk. Those SNL videos are pretty funny, though. Thanks for watching. Be good to each other and yourselves, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.